Oh, my friends, this is a big episode. And by big, I mean it's our longest one yet. And I did think about cutting this episode into 2 parts, but I just didn't know where to pause this conversation. So settle on in, because Sherrod and I just do not stop. We are 2 impassioned Scorpios who didn't realize we were going to find such a fast connection. So needless to say, we got a little carried away. And as 2 fire signs, we also get fired up. So there is a bit of cursing in this episode. If you have little ones, I suggest saving this episode for later or enjoying the wonders of headphones. Also, just a technical note, our connection on this recording was a little spotty, so the audio does sound a bit funny. As I was listening back through, I did kind of get used to it. So my hope is that you'll get used to it too, because this was just too good of a chat to try and re-record. You can't recreate an organic conversation like this. All right, without further ado and my disclaimers out of the way, let's dive in. Hey, Sherrod, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for making the time. I'm so excited. I feel like you've got so many things going on that getting in on your calendar, I feel like, is a big deal.
So I am booked and busy.
Well, and we got connected by way of, I feel like there's this like a secret Instagram pod out there of really cool people who are actually talking to each other. And I was able to like tiptoe into it because Diane was like, you need to talk to Sherrod. And then Steven was like, you need to talk to Sherrod. Yeah. So I'm like in with the cool kids now.
Okay, all right. I feel very seen. Okay.
For people who don't know who you are, how would you introduce yourself?
Hey, y'all. Hey, my name is Sherrod. I am a regular little potter doing it in my what little spare time I have, which seems to keep shrinking. I make small batch handmade like everybody else. I have a background in design, and I am a software designer in my full-time job. So creating things is something I've always done.
And you have some, correct me if I'm wrong, but did you have some interior design stuff or graphic design that I've seen as well? Like all sorts of different aspects of design. I feel like I've either heard you talk about or am I just making that up?
No, I've done a lot within the realm of design. Within the umbrella, I started with graphic design, but I do software design and development. So iPhone apps, web apps, desktop apps, I've done it all. I also video editing, video production, I've done for many years. So way back in the 1800s in high school with camcorders. I mean, I've done a lot of things within the realm of design. This is, however, the first, I think, non-digital thing I've ever done, which is a completely a wild change for me, which I absolutely adore so much.
Okay, so that begs the question then, how did you get into pottery in the first place?
I got divorced, which was the best thing that ever happened to me, and it was wonderful. And I'm telling you, when it's right, it's right. And it's sometimes, not every divorce is a fairy tale, but sometimes it is the absolute thing that you need to happen in order to move forward as a human being. And for me, it was like a light switch. It was like that night, like after I said the words that night, it was like a flower blossoming. Like I just changed. And so I started to do things that I had not done while I was married. You know, I took a trip to Hawaii. I went to New Orleans, New York a few times. I jet set all over, honey, like I had the money, just going. And one of the things I always wanted to do was take a pottery class. For years and years and years I talked about it. And so finally, I was like, damn it, we can do it this year. And so I took the class with a friend of mine, and it was instant connection. Like, you know, sometimes there are things you do where like, yes, this makes sense. I can do this. I enjoy this. It was one of those things. There was no struggle. It was no fight. I loved it from the minute we started making pinch pots. I was ready to go. And even a week before we were supposed to learn wheel throwing, I got my ass on that wheel with a book. And I said, we're going to learn this today, honey. I am tired of hand building. I'm ready for wheel throwing. And I threw me I haven't posted about it. I don't know what it was. I don't think I even, maybe a cylinder. I don't know. It was, it's those weird cylinder bowl hybrids that aren't quite one thing or another. They can't even be trimmed really. But
it was circular.
more or less circular. And the point remains that I made it my very first attempt by myself in that little classroom, nobody else there, with a book on the table and my hands in the clay. And that was it from there. Like, that was it. You couldn't tell me nothing. It's ceramics all day, every day, honey. That's it.
I'm amazed right now. Isn't it funny how there's certain people? So I was joking at the beginning of this that Diana said that we needed to talk and Steven said that we needed to talk. And after talking to the two of them, I'll trust any of their recommendations, hands down. So I just like blindly sent you a message and I had started following your work. But now hearing this story, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're like, there's so much overlap where it's like, yay! Some people are going to think it's crazy that I'm geeking out over this bond of the healthy lifestyle that comes after something that most people think of as this really and it's not that it's painful and tragic and all of that, but I am with you on the growth after that. 1,000%. I realized I didn't even consciously recognize it. I thought I was trying to go back into ceramics because I was tired of sitting on the computer. But at the time, I didn't even realize what I was really looking for was something so therapeutic. And that came out a couple years later when I was going through a divorce. And it was like, oh, now I see how all this lined up. There it is.
I love that feeling of discernment that comes. Sometimes it comes immediately, sometimes it's later on. But when everything becomes crystal clear, and in that moment you're like, oh, got it. I see it now. There's no better feeling. I love that.
Right? Also when like all of your past experiences start to merge together where you go, oh, okay, I went through this because that gave me, even if it's just something like as a surface level as my degrees in graphic design. It's not in photography. It's certainly not in ceramics. Like it's not in any of the stuff I'm actually practicing, but learning graphic design put me leaps and bounds above other people when it came to launching a business and building a brand. And I could create my own website. My first website, you will appreciate this, I made it in Dreamweaver. Each page was its own HTML file.
Yes. Let's really just show how old we are, please. I know I have fond memories of Dreamweaver. I absolutely do. So you are speaking my language. That's something I talk about a lot, though, is how multidisciplinary you have to be as an artist nowadays. Like you said, it's all of these lifetime of skills. I went to school for photography, started graphic design when I was a kid, did video production since high school. Even culinary arts has helped me in this craft. My experience with marketing. I've had other businesses, so I know how to run a business. Like everything that I've done over the past 30 years has literally goes into this business. I can't think of a single skill that I did not have before that I'm not using now in this one business, which is incredible. I love it.
Oh, that's important. I want everybody to just hit pause and sit with that, because I can't tell you how many times I hear from people who, and it's for me, it's a natural human instinct to, once you find a new craft that you're passionate about, it's like, how can I go all in on this? How can I quit the full-time job and do this full-time? And not pausing to think about like how much all those other skills were accruing inform the ability to then, when the time is right, take whatever that next life step is going to be.
And that's how I knew that this was a different thing for me, was because I've had other businesses and not all of them have used all of those skills. I knew that this business was different in that there is nothing that I do that doesn't draw on some life experience in some fashion, which it feels divinely ordered to me. It feels like this is what's supposed to happen. Like I've been working my whole life doing all of these various things to do this, which is it's just an overwhelming, incredible feeling for me.
Talk to us a little bit about what Deep Black Design looks like as a business, how it fits into your life. You mentioned that you're still doing the software development. So what's day-to-day Sherrod life? How does that actually all play out?
Yeah, so I'm fortunate in that my full-time job, I'm a software designer for a major medical company. And so I'm fortunate in that I do have to be up at a certain time. I have, morning meetings, but after that, I'm pretty much left alone for the rest of the day. And the work that I do can space out and fit into my own sort of rhythm and schedule. It's not like a 9 to 5. I'm not really held accountable on time. So I have morning meetings, but then after that, honestly, the first thing I do is go into the studio. Sometimes I'll make breakfast and then head on and do what I need to get done for a little while, and then come back to my actual work, my actual job, and work on that for a while. Sometimes I don't even get to that until 9, 10 o'clock at night. So I am very fortunate and very thankful that I can shift what I do throughout the day and throughout the week, but every day. In fact, at the time of recording this, I took 2 weeks off of work. We have unlimited PTO, so some days I just take off just to sit down and work on something.
Are they hiring?
So I was fortunate I could take off this time and work on what I wanted to work on and not have to worry about other things. Right now, I'm doing a large order for a restaurant, for a Bayberry restaurant in Rhode Island. And if you want to talk about sucking up time, honey, I mean, this is the first order is over 220 items. I am exhausted.
Yeah.
Completely and totally drained. But I'm glad I was able to at least take this time off of work so I could really get into it. And I, backed up with other jobs as well. So it's a crunch is what I'm trying to get to, trying to balance the two. But I get it done, sort of.
Well, and okay, so talk to me about that order, because for some people that sounds like what dreams are made of. Like for anybody who's interested in anybody, let's be real. I'm talking about me here, so I'm not going to put this on anybody else. But personally, I am craving trying to find the solution that avoids Etsy and avoids the one-off. I see everybody posting on Instagram all of their hours and hours of packaging and shipping. And the first thing I recognized was like, you guys are dealing with one order, like one item for 100 people. I want to have one client with 100 items. There's less emails, there's less packaging, similar packaging, but less labels.
No, there's not.
I know, same packaging, but you only have to deal with one address at least. Like the fear of putting the wrong label on the wrong box is at least wiped away. But obviously there's a pros and cons to any model. So is this the first, have you had other big orders like this and this is just a natural thing for your work? Or is this the first order of this magnitude? Or tell us more, basically.
So I was, like most other potters, I do a drop a month or every other month, 40 to 60 pieces and ship them out, and then we rinse, wash, repeat. And then in, January, things started to change big time. And I started getting a lot of inquiries from the shops. And Yowie, Shannon Maldonado's boutique in Philly, which you've not seen, stop listening and go look at her stuff. Her thing is fabulous. And so I applied to her shop to be an artisan, and she said yes. And we started hashing out a collaboration. It was like 30-something pieces, but it was all custom. Completely custom, new forms, colors no one had ever seen before, totally new stuff for me. And so that was my first experience with one client, lots of stuff. And that, I thought, boy, 30, we'll never do that again. That was a ton. Then lo and behold, a month later, I get an email from the general manager at Bayberry. She's like, hey, restaurant. And we start talking, and she's like, so we're looking at like 100 plates, 80 bowls, maybe 60 or so other bowls. And I'm like, yeah. Oh, yeah. No problem. Yeah, I can. What? Oh, my God. I can't do that. Yeah, I can absolutely do that. No problem at all. So I'm internally doing backflips. I'm like, yay, this is fantastic. My God, that's a lot of work. This was the first order of that magnitude. What's funny, ever since then, every other week or so, I'll get into a shop to reach out, asking about an order, and the numbers keep going up. Not 200 again, thank God. One shop wants 15, one wants 30, one wants 40. The numbers keep going up and up. And like you said, there's pros and cons. It is, can we curse? Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's fine. I assume everyone's a grown-up, and when we curse too much, I just put a little disclaimer.
Good, because I was going to say it is a fuck ton of work, honey. It is such a large amount of stuff to do. I clocked it the other day. Just from the time that I go into the studio, so I'm doing slip casting for this client. And so from the time I walk into the studio to the time where the molds are done and can just sit and absorb the water, it's 2.5 hours. That time is non-negotiable. There's no way to shave it down. That is the slimmest I can get it. So just imagine 2.5 hours twice a day out of your day is gone, devoted to a single client. It's a big chunk of time. Not to mention the amount of kiln space they take up. My studio is full to the brim with stuff drying. I have no place to put anything. So, like you said, there's pros and cons to one client at a time, small order, big order, that type of thing. You got to be real clear on what you want out of it, because it can very quickly overwhelm you.
Right now, if you had to decide, and obviously, who knows, in 6 months, you could come back and be like, my decision has changed. But since you're in the middle of it, and this is why I love these conversations, because I feel like there's so many podcasts out there that, like, you're talking to somebody who, like, has been through it, they've sold their business, like, success story, and is talking in hindsight. And we're talking, like, right now, you are in the thick of it, you are making 200 plates.
As it's happening. Yep.
Do you feel like this is the direction you want to be taking Deep Black? Or are you like, you know what, actually, those 30, 40, 60 Etsy orders isn't looking so bad anymore?
No, this is absolutely the direction I wanted. This was the goal from, I keep meaning to write posts on this. This has been the goal since I started learning Slipcast. This is why I wanted to get into it. For this client right here. I started Slipcasting started learning it back in, I want to say September of last year. And, started just practicing making molds. I'm a planner. I'm a Scorpio. I like things to go my way, and I don't like when things go off track. So this was all prepared 6 months ago. My New Year collection was all Slipcast, just so I could make sure I had the process down. I knew how to market it. I knew how to sell it. I knew all the ins and outs of the process as much as I could at that time. So this is the direction that I want this to go. This is everything I've ever wanted. The ability to make multiple things simultaneously, little effort, because I can still get on the wheel and throw after them 2.5 hours is done. And then in 6 hours, I've got 20 dishes that are ready to go. So this is absolutely what I've been working towards. And I think it's important, as if you are a business owner with a capital B, someone who knows they want to make this a career. I think it's very important that you think in this manner, like, what is the next steps? Where do I want to be in 6 months? What do I need to learn now to get there? What do I need to invest in order to be able to make that happen? Otherwise, it's always like a treading water. You're never quite ahead.
Yes. I was just talking to a one-on-one coaching client of mine about that, in terms of it's all being able to break down those goals, having that 5-year vision, having that ultimate vision. But, like, we're humans, we're finite. We can't hold on to a goal for 5 years and stick to it. Like, you got to break that down into manageable chunks and having, okay, if I want to be here in 5 years, what does that mean for this year? Let alone also breaking that further to say, okay, if I want to be to X at the end of this year, what does that mean for this month? What does that mean for this quarter? What does that mean for this week? And how it all informs one to the next. And that's actually how you can be very strategic about, our Scorpio hearts are just cuddling up with each other right now. I'm like, yes, 1,000%. But, like, you can.
That's it.
And there is obviously there's some luck of timing, getting this phone call from this client and things like that. But you can really be strategic about, here's where I want to go. Here's the vision. Here's the dream. Therefore, I'm going to make these decisions now because that informs.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's difficult to do. It's a different way of thinking, and I think we are expected to work. But having the tenacity to say, I know I want to do X, so let me do A, B, C, D, and E right now is game-changing. It gives you so much power and control over your work. It feels counterintuitive as an artist because we're so in the moment, and we, when the inspiration strikes, honey, and I have these grand ideas and thoughts and I write them down. But at some point, you do have it behooves you to stop and say, wait, let me do something else in order to better myself in the future. It really makes a difference, a big difference. So when that call do come, you're ready to half-heartedly say, absolutely, I can do that. You lie through your teeth a little bit, but you've got the skill set to make it happen at some point.
I had a design professor once who told us that this was like our last year in college. You're getting ready, trying to get a job. And he just point blank told us the first job he ever got, he was sitting in an interview and they asked if he knew how to do, I think this was web design, because this would have been however many years ago that he was getting a job, let alone having this conversation. Asked if he knew how to do whatever version of coding maybe or something. And he was like, yep. Just said yes, didn't elaborate, just said yes, went home and started pulling the books, going to the library, doing all the things to learn so that in a week when they offered him the job, he could do that.
Yep.
I don't know that I have that risk tolerance level, but still.
Oh, let me tell you who do, though. It's me. I've done that. I had a software development client a few years ago, and it was a friend of mine, in fact. I hope he's not listening. He probably won't listen. I hope not, because I sure lied through my teeth in that interview. Yes, I use it all the time. I'm absolutely familiar. I've done that a million times. I haven't even heard the thing, girl. I had to Google it after the interview. So I have, and let me tell you something, that was the most lucrative job I'd ever had in my life. I will never see that kind of money again. It was fantastic. I lied my natural black ass off, honey. That is a skill. Let me tell you why. Because oftentimes, we are a lot smarter than we think we are. And a lot of folks don't give themselves that credit. They don't say to themselves, I know I can figure this thing out. So let's do it. I'm speaking with Scorpios again. We know we got it like that. But a lot of other people don't feel that they have the sort of the autodidactic quality that they really do. And so learning when and when not to lie, to fudge about your skill set because you can figure it out in a week. Let me tell you something, will open doors. There's so many opportunities that people turn down because they feel like they're not good enough, they don't know enough. You do. You know enough. You're definitely good enough. Say yes to the thing and figure it out in a few days. You'll have it no problem. It's a good skill to have.
And I think what we're talking about here specifically is we're not talking about blatantly lying about not knowing a damn thing about a skill set. We're talking about tangential. Well, but not even though, because you were talking about like you already knew other aspects of software development.
I had the means to learn more. Yeah.
I am by no means ever going to say yes to anybody if they ask me to be a private chef. Nope, I can't lie about that, and I for sure can't learn it that quickly. Like, I have no cooking skills whatsoever. It's why I married an Italian.
There you go. Hello.
So, what we're talking about is trusting yourself. We're not talking about blatantly lying to someone in a way that is slimy or cruel or...
like wildly disingenuous, like fraudulent.
Exactly. You're not being like you had software development skills. You could learn a new coding language because you already know the roots. I hear this so many times from people. I have 3 emails in my inbox right now from people asking the question of like, how do you know when you're good enough? And it is that some of it might feel like lying because you're not convinced for yourself yet in that confidence. And so it's almost like lying about the confidence because you do actually have the skills, but you haven't taken that step yet, maybe.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. You're right. It's a big confidence thing. You just have to, like you said, trust yourself. Know that you got this. And what's funny is I work with an astrologer. Her name is Jaleesa Cypress, and she is phenomenal. I don't think my life would have taken a direction had I not worked with her. And so one of the things she said, I do a reading every single year, my solar return reading, and on November. And I don't miss it, honey. I pay for it months in advance. In fact, I have the money saved up for this year's already. I'm ready to go. But for me, that is my January 1st. That's when my year actually begins. And so one of the things she told me was that this year, she said, you're going to experience a lot of highs and some real lows. And she said, you need to understand that you're going to be fine. She said, one of the lessons you need to take with yourself is that no matter what happens, you need to say to yourself, I'm going to be fine. It's going to be great. I'm really going to be able to make it through this. And sure enough, the next week, something happened at work that was devastating. And I heard her advice. Normally, I'm one that's quick to anger. And I heard her advice. I said to myself, nope, don't panic. You're going to be just fine. And I had to tell myself that over and over again this year. And when I see a big order, it works for the negative as well as the positive. When I see big order, I tell myself, you can do this. It's going to be fine. When I see numbers dipping, I say, it's not a big deal. You're going to be fine. You can get through this, no problem. That trusting yourself is so difficult because it feels like every time you have a setback or something new comes on, it's going to kill you. But you have to learn that it's not. You're going to be just fine.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially during post-COVID, whatever we're calling now as it continues, I kept telling myself, like, I have been a self-employed artistic entrepreneur for 11 years. I'm not homeless. I'm not going to be destitute. I didn't have any credit card debt. Like, we can do this, even though it was something none of us have ever experienced in our lifetime ever before. And you just have to, I have a running list of things where it's remind yourself, you have come this far. You have done this much. Like the goals and the dreams I have now are so far removed from what I considered accomplishments 10 years ago, 5 years ago. You know, I think we also quickly forget in some ways you're living in the dreams you had from 3 years ago.
Say it.
10 years ago.
Yep. Yes. Say that. I was having a conversation with my friend Gio at Gio's table. Gio Darwin is his name. We have the most deep conversations. And right around New Year, when everybody's reflecting and thinking about the year to come, we were like, this year we need to stop and look around and see. We need to make time to see that we are where we wanted to be 5, 10, 15 years ago. 2021, us, is the fully realized version of us. And we need to really take the time to look at that and treasure that and say, yes, we fucking did it, bitch. This is it. Yeah, we may have more goals and maybe we're not exactly where we want to be in 10 years. But from 10 years ago, we're there, honey. And we need to say, thank you, we did it. And that's a really big thing. Not being able to stop and recognize what you've done so far only leads you to feel like you can't do anything. And that's really not the case. Your mind changes. Your mentality around what is abundant and what is not shifts when you become grateful and thankful and observant of what you have and have accomplished.
Yes.
Big change.
Absolutely. These two pieces, I think, are some of the biggest stuff that there are the tactical things about being ready to go full-time in an art, being a business owner, things like that. Do you know your numbers? Those are tactical things, but the harder to put your thumb on things is, and it's a practice. Like I said, I'm 11 years in. I'm still working on this stuff, but just to be aware of it, for someone to be aware of it before they get into the middle of it, to be able to say, like, I trust my intuition. I trust my gut. I trust my ability to figure things out is huge for making it as a small business. 1,000%.
It absolutely is. Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned, I'm going to slightly right turn because I think the mindset work is so important. I also think there are so many people on the internet right now talking about mindset that there are way more, I don't want to say more accomplished, but just that's their lane. So I'm going to stay in my lane. So you've talked about the fact that these orders you're getting in right now are basically a fruition of a goal you've been working at. Is the ultimate goal to continue to balance the software design Sherrod and the ceramic Sherrod, or are you working towards making Deep Black Designs your full-time go-to life? Well, hopefully also other life outside business. This is important, but that's a different conversation. But like even though we are all appreciating where we're at right now, that 5-year vision from now, what's that look like for you?
I absolutely am not trying to stay in the software design job. I wanted to leave it this year, and Julie was like, no, don't. This is not the year. It's later on. And when she says that, I listen. So next year, I think, will be the year that I take it full time. And I tend to agree. It's that I need a certain amount of momentum in order to make, I think, that happen. So 5 years down the road, I definitely want to have like a full staff. I want autonomy. I want to be able to do multiple things. For me, that's the goal, to do multiple things simultaneously. So we have big clients that need slip casting and ram press and the more automated techniques. And then we have smaller clients still that require hand-thrown pieces. Actually, I have to say, even within Bayberry, there's still hand-thrown stuff. I have people who can do hand-thrown stuff, and I can get on the wheel myself and create new forms and set the direction for the company. And then I have my education platform where I am recording videos and producing educational content. This whole other arm of the business will be flourishing in just a little short while. And so my ultimate goal is to be able to grow the business in all of its arms and legs and tentacles and eyeballs in ways that don't require me to be sitting at a computer all day long or on the wheel all day long. I need to have the freedom to expand. And I think that's what I'm working toward is cultivating a new skill set of running a business with so many autonomous parts, which is a new thing for me.
Yeah, that's huge. That's a radically different everything. I don't know. It's a completely different, completely different approach also to thinking about how you're going to build the business, right? Like the requirements that business needs to even have one full-time staff person, let alone multiple, space, equipment, all that kind of stuff. That's exciting. That's amazing.
You know, once again, Scorpio, I've planned for this. Last year, I made the decision to move back to my hometown of Hampton Roads, of Virginia Beach, Portsmouth, you know, the 7 cities. And so I moved back here, bought a house, specifically a house that has a very large amount of land and has, I'm looking at it right now, a 2-story. My studio is 2 stories, like 1,000 square feet. So I specifically bought this house for this plan. So I was prepared to go all in on this like a year ago.
Be still my planner heart. I'm clearly also a Scorpio. I'm absolutely a planner, but you have just taken it like to the next level.
It's chess, not checkers, honey. You have to, when you get to our big age, over 30, you got to start thinking in terms of years and not weeks like we did in our 20s. It's no longer, we're not playing checkers anymore at this age. Oh my God, the last 2 years just scared the fuck out of me. Just showed me you don't have time. So if there's something you want to do, if there's a lifestyle you want to build, if there's a way you want to live, do it now. Because you don't have time otherwise. You could be gone tomorrow. So what the fuck was the point? The last couple of years, I really spent a lot of time with myself, talking to myself, Sherrod, what is it you want to do? You know, how do you want to live? What are your feelings about this? I spent a lot of time. And this is where it led me, all of that thinking. And I think it's scary to go. I mean, buying a house is one of the most stressful, most crazy things you'll ever do in your entire life. It's horrifying in the United States of America to buy a house. So it is a very scary way to think. But the feeling that I have, that I know I'm A, walking my purpose, and B, this is the next step on a plan that I can see being executed one step at a time, is immense. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, but damn it is scary. It is very scary.
Oh yeah, both are true, 1,000%. For me, it was more, the last couple of years, it was more the recognition of, I realized there's goals I have had on my list for years that I have never I have never accomplished. And as a planner and a Scorpio, we're not the people that sit back and don't accomplish goals. No, I am proactive to the nth degree. And so I was sitting there going, why haven't I hit these markers that I've given myself? And realizing they weren't the goals I actually wanted. They were the goals that in the industries that I'm in and things like that were the ones that were the markers of success, quote unquote. And for me, these last couple of years and the great COVID pause brought about that time to reflect and say, what do I actually want? If I remove all the noise out, if I remove out the Instagram and the rest of it and the comparison and everything, if I take all that out, like what kind of life do I really, like the pace of the life, the style? The past year and a half being able to sit around and not put on makeup was like my true self. Right? Right? Like I can roll in a black tie gala with the rest of them. I love my black tie weddings I photographed. Like I can do either extreme, but realizing I've just been keeping up with the Joneses this whole time. I built a business that was going after these goals because I was just trying to, like, somewhere in me, I was still the younger cousin trying to hang out with the older kids or the awkward band nerd trying to play with the cool kids. Realizing that isn't actually what I want. I don't care whether or not all of this stuff that I was centering what was success around was like, actually, none of that's true. And now we're upending everything. I'm moving out of the city. Like, much like yourself, it's let's set up the whole life, the house, the whole thing around what are the real goals? Where do you actually want to be?
It's so funny you say that because I had a similar thing when I was, in my 20s. I had an idea of what I wanted things to be like, and one of my goals, probably the one near the top of the list, top two, was like 6-figure before 30, and I did it at 27, and then I was like, shit, now what? And I had like no goals after that. I genuinely had 0 goals for myself after that because I didn't know what else was supposed to follow it? And then it took me a while before I was like, maybe your goals were kind of shitty, actually. Maybe they weren't really the goals that you wanted. And that's a real scary thought, because it means that what you thought about yourself is no longer true. And you got to have some real honest conversation with yourself. And I did that. I took a class with Jaleesa and another woman. I can't remember her name, but it was an abundance sort of workshop. It was a week-long class full of journaling. It was super woo-woo. It was the sort of thing I never would have done if it were for quarantine. It was very ancestral regression, and it was a lot of journaling and thinking about sort of stuff. But, here we are in quarantine. I had time for that kind of stuff. So I said, let me just do it and see how it goes. It's only $10, so if it don't work, it don't work. I learned more about myself in that week than I have in 30 years, because one of the things that we talked about is, what does abundance look like to you without thinking about money, without thinking about possessions, acquiring things? What does that feel like? And one of the exercises she had was you have to write out what your perfect day would be like if you were living in abundance. And for me, it was so mind-boggling. So it was wake up at 10:30 a.m., have a great breakfast, have friends coming over just to drop by. It was have my studio assistants, and we work for a few hours during the day, make a big lunch, maybe cook out, maybe have folks for dinner, go to bed around 1 a.m. That was it. That was the meaning of abundance for me. And so sitting there looking at it, on the page, I'm like, oh, that doesn't require $100,000 a year, sweetie. That's not what that means. So now we really need to start looking at these goals here, and really need to start thinking about what we actually want to do with our life. Because with the way we've been going, it's not that girl. So that was a major shift for me, and it was so uncomfortable to think in that manner. We are so trained, especially, I'm going to talk to Black folk right now. Especially as Black people, we are told that we have to do better. We have to do better than our parents specifically. If you're not doing better than your parents, you are letting everyone come before you down. And so we are so ingrained to always be reaching higher and higher, bigger numbers, more education, better jobs, have kids, and then make sure they do better. It's this never-ending cycle that we often don't get a chance to stop and say, okay, better, yes, but what does that mean for me specifically? What does it mean for what I want out of life? Not pleasing parents or the ancestors or the rest of the community. What does it mean for me to have the lifestyle and the type of career that really satisfies my soul and makes me feel validated and seen in this world? That's a tough conversation to have, but it's so important to have. I tell you, I get chills thinking about it.
That's so huge. That's so huge to ask the question of, for anything, what does it mean for me is the thing that I'm just sitting with.
It's tough. It's real tough because it asks you to shed decades of knowledge that you've learned about the way things are supposed to be and the way you're supposed to be in this world. That simple question asks you to get rid of so much. When you do, things open up and become clear to you. I think that is so lacking for a lot of people who think about the way, I see people running their business. How do I do that? Or they have a certain type of lifestyle. I want that. You got to be prepared to have some tough conversation with yourself and others. If you're married, this is not a great conversation to have. Thank God I got divorced, and this is why I got divorced. I could never had this conversation with that man, honey. It never would have worked. It is a real tough thing to say, I know you're enjoying this 2,000 square foot house and the ability to go off to Paris for a weekend. I don't want that anymore. That is it's a hard thing to say, but you got to say it eventually.
Also, the fascinating thing for me is how, okay, on the surface, on the outside, on the gram, it all looked really great because we were hitting these outside goals, right? And it's so funny that you bring up the 6-figure thing, because that in and of itself, specifically for me, has been one of the goals on my list that I have not hit, admittedly. And I have owned my business for 11 years. So that's kind of annoying. Also, when you've got friends where you're looking at them going, shit, if I would have just worked for somebody else.
Yes.
If I didn't value my autonomy so damn much, I would have hit that. If you worked for any singular company for 11 years and did your job and did it well, like the annual promotions, we'd be there and past it, I'd presume. Right. So it was kind of like, what is it? What does that number signify? What is that number supposed to be about?
Yes. What does that number get me?
Exactly.
Yes, that is it right there. What does that number mean to me? What does it get me? And why am I working so damn hard for something that I may never achieve? Is there something else there? Yes, that is it, honey.
Not only what does it get you, but what do you have to give up to get it at the same time?
Woo, woo, woo. Say it. Say it. Because these two Scorpios here will tell you autonomy is everything. That freedom that comes from being able to wake up at 11 o'clock in the morning. I got up at 1 today. Being able to do that means the world to me. I hate running on someone else's schedule. I hate sitting in meetings where no one is saying anything in particular. I hate having half my big day booked sitting in front of a computer. And being able to get rid of that, that is what I want. That is what I need for the second half of my life. And the ability to point to those things and say, maybe I don't love this as much as I thought I did. Maybe I don't like sitting. I transitioned. I used to be full-time software developer. And I thought that's always what I wanted to be because I have an uncle who is very wealthy. He was also a software developer. And so that if you really want to hear the whole thing, I went to the same school as him, same college as him, went College of William and Mary. I started in the same major as him, computer science. And I quickly learned that is not what I wanted to do. Computer science was not for me as a major. Then I learned college was not for me. It's not what I wanted to do. Then I went to art school instead of a traditional traditional liberal arts college. And I like money more than I like school as a whole is not for me. You have to be able to do those things repeatedly throughout your life. It's real tough. It's real tough. And it feels like you said, you're giving up things. I gave up the potential to work for a company like my uncle did and become wealthy. I gave up the letters after my name. I gave up the degree. Gave up so many things to achieve the things that I thought I really wanted. And maybe I did it. At those points, I did really want to make 6 figures before I was there. That was a real goal I had. Yeah, and nothing wrong with that at all.
No,
it required me to give up so many things, and now I'm at the point where if I sacrifice something, I want it to be in service of this goal that I know is what I absolutely want for the next 30 years. I am very clear on what I do and do not want out of life at this point. So if I give up something in order to get it, I've planned for it. I know what I'm doing at this point. Unfortunately, one of those things that comes with age and experience in life, divorce will teach you that real quick, what you do not want. But it's one of those things, you got to do it. You got to do it if you want to make it. It's tough, real tough.
You use the word clear a few times, and I think for me, at least in my experience, is that clarity. I heard so many people talk around having a singular goal or a singular vision or getting clear. Like I've been to the amount of money I have invested in education and conferences and professional conferences and business conferences and self-improvement and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's a stupid amount. My accountant has a separate line item on our expense report that's just education, and it's dumb. But I kept hearing people use this phrase all the time, and I would get so frustrated because I couldn't just pick one thing. I didn't feel like I had that clarity. A friend of mine started a beautiful, wonderful nonprofit that everybody should check out called the Birthday Party Project. She used to be an event planner and a wedding planner in Dallas. And then she got this, had this moment, had this vision. And she follows her life by the one word that is joy. She brings joy to children suffering from homelessness. Joy is the word, and she can sum it down into one word. And I was like, man, I don't know how I could ever get it down into that. But now, as I've reflected over these last 2 years and gotten honest with myself and gotten clear on the stuff that actually matters, there's a lot more clarity coming. There's a lot more vision. And I think that's one of those things that when you can't get clear, from my experience, maybe it's because you're not in the right thing. I think all of this takes time and experience. For the people who are dipping their toes into entrepreneurship right now and testing out small business, you can't figure all this out, at least, again, to my experience. Maybe somebody out there can figure it out faster, but you got to try a bunch of different stuff. You got to test run some things and then just keep checking in on yourself. But that essential of clarity, man, I think the momentum that comes when you have clarity and you right now, you started 6 months ago testing slip casting, and now look at the momentum you have. Like, people don't see that trajectory on Instagram,
right,
for example.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And with that clarity, it comes from stillness. It comes from speaking within yourself. It comes from having difficult conversations outside of yourself and within yourself. It comes from therapy. Which comes in many forms. You know, it may be like me speaking to an astrologer. It may also be speaking to a traditional therapist. It may be seeking a new religion. There is something, that clarity, when you have it, it is a feeling inside of yourself of things being very obvious. When I make a move within my business, it is obvious to me that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. It's not a doubt in my mind. I just talked to my friend this morning about making incense. Obviously, that makes sense for me because half of what I make is incense burners. And I burn incense every damn hour of the damn day. So the clarity is there that this is an arm I can add to my business. And I immediately started thinking about how I can make it autonomous, how I can have this new sort of venture fold in with the rest of the business. When you have that clarity, these ideas become just so obvious, so easy to access, but it does require a significant amount of investment in yourself. And I think, like you said, you know, if you're just starting out, you may not feel like you have clarity. It may feel like you're bouncing around. And I think if that's how, you know, you're feeling, one should stop and say, okay, wait a minute, what is it that I want to get to? What is the lifestyle I'm trying to achieve? What is the number I'm trying to achieve? What are the things that I want to have in place? Why am I doing all of this mess? You can still bounce around, that can be part of the plan, but you've got to have a clear idea of where you're headed. It don't have to be written out. As much as you say, oh, we're planning with Scorpios, I don't actually write down a lot of my plans. They're not like formal lists like Steven had. It's not like a vision board, although I did do that. It's not like a formal vision board or anything like that. It's just a thought of what I will and will not do, what I will and will not accept. That is, for me, a plan. So being able to cultivate that within oneself is yet another skill that you have to have as a business owner. And like you said, it does require a lot of, you know, looking at stuff, a lot of bouncing around, trying stuff, failing. We could have a whole other session on failing and how important it is to fail. People think fail is a four-letter word. I'm here to tell you, girls, if you're not failing, you haven't succeeded at shit. You have to fail in order to get anywhere at all, but certainly to become successful. You can do it without it, because otherwise, what if you learn? Nothing. When I started slip casting, oh my God, first of all, I was in my 700 square foot apartment. I laid down yard upon yard of tarp, because that security deposit was not cheap. So my entire apartment was blanketed in plastic. I sat there with 300 pounds of plaster, casting over and over again, making the biggest mess you've seen. I went to the dollar store. In my mind, I was like, oh, this is going to be so great. I just cast a glass I get from the dollar store. There's a mold. Here we go. I don't have to sit down and throw nothing. So the first 8 molds I made didn't even come out the container. The next 3, the thing didn't come out the mold. So it was constant failure for a month. Every day I would try something and it completely failed. And I'm not talking about the kind of fail you can save, honey. I'm talking about the kind of fail in a dumpster.
This is not a second sale. Nobody has ever purchased these items from a second sale.
I know. And even the first time I got a mold to work, the actual plaster ratio was wrong. So I poured slip in, I bought slip, poured it in, waited for that thing to cast for like 4 hours. I'm like, this can't be right. It can't be taking 4 hours. I pull it out, and it's the thinnest piece you've ever seen in your entire. There's no way in God's green earth you could ever have thrown that in. I picked it up out the thing. I looked at it. I was like, oh, I finally casted something. I turned it in my hand, and it shattered. I'm like, fuck. What am I doing wrong here? Failure after failure after failure. None of it I put on Instagram. I want to tell you girls right now, I told nobody about any of that failure. Not because I don't necessarily think you should show your failures. I think you should. But I was so upset with myself. You done spent hundreds of dollars, bitch, on all this. And look, you ain't made nothing after all that.
And now you're slip casting 100 plates and 80 bowls and crushing the to-do list of your dreams. This is the stuff nobody sees.
But it's the stuff nobody sees. I wish I could say I did have a failure recently, but when I started this slip casting for this restaurant, one of the things I didn't know about was making mothers, which is a permanent positive that you use to make more molds. You can make an infinite number of molds from the mother because the mother never degrades. I had to learn real quick how to make a mother, had them fail, had a catastrophic failure with one of them, with this $180 a gallon silicone that I, just burned through. Yeah. Huge failure, massive failures. I have a mold right now that's actually not super well made. It's falling apart. So that's another failure. I have one mold in particular that just will not cast. I don't know why. And it is a very big, very heavy mold. And so there was another failure. I had to reduce my production output a little bit because this mold just didn't work. So being comfortable with failure and knowing that you can, again, fail and you're going to be fine. You're going to fail, you're going to take a lesson from it, and you're going to be fine. That's all business is, as far as I'm concerned. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the question I always ask myself is, if I can walk myself through what's the worst case scenario, right? What's the worst that can happen? If I'm okay with that, then you are going to be fine. And I almost think that's a certain litmus test for like, how badly do you want to do this? When people are asking like, should I, shouldn't I? Should I go full time? Should I not? Can I do this or not? It's also, for me, it's a matter of how badly do you want it? Because
yes.
Right? I'm not saying 11 years ago, I got up at 3:20 in the morning to get on the Clark Street bus to go downtown to make people coffee, to work like a 6 or 8 hour shift before come back home, sit down at my computer. I could answer emails and not have any clients know that I worked another job because I was done with a 6 hour shift by 11 o'clock in the morning, log a chunk of time, and then turn around and go nanny at night, because that's how I started my business without taking out any business loans. Now, do I want to do that 11 years later? You can do that. No. You can do that in your early 20s. No. I need more than 5 hours of sleep now.
Girl, you ain't never lied.
Like life realities, people need to get realistic around. Do you need to put kids through school? Do you need to? There's some guardrails to put on this. But are you willing? Like, how far are you willing to go? What are you willing to do? Like, presuming safety is,
Right, you have a bare minimum.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you can buy reasonable groceries, but are you willing to give up Whole Foods? Are you willing to go shop at Aldi?
Thank you. Say it. Yeah. Because that's where I am with it now. As I'm planning my move to full-time, I look around. So when I moved into this house, I spent the first month buying things indiscriminately. I didn't care what the price was. Give it to me. I was on Jeff Bezos' Amazon on an hourly basis. Send it to me, honey. I'm paying my $12 for Prime. Send it to me today. So I spent legitimately time getting it out of my system. I'm a shopaholic. I love to shop. I spent time getting it out of my system. That feeling of just shopping indiscriminately, because I know the rest of this year, it's heads down work. And when we go full time, you're not going to be on Jeff Bezos' Amazon every single day shopping for your health, sweetie. I've already had a conversation with myself that we're really going to be cutting back. It's going to be rice and beans some days. But like you said, what are you willing to give up to get what you want? Because I know that's temporary. I know the rice and beans and the beans and rice is not going to last but so long, and then we're going to be flourishing. We could be flourishing from the get-go. I don't know if that is not true, but I am prepared to give up going to Whole Foods on a weekly basis in order to get what I want. I'm prepared to give up going all up and through the corners of Amazon on an hourly basis to get the lifestyle I want. I absolutely am. I'm setting myself up right now while I have this great job and this great health insurance to be able to go without for some time. Because I know there may come a time when I do not have, and I'm fine with that. I'm absolutely fine with not having, if it means that I get what I actually truly want, and it goes right back to that clarity. I know what I want, so I'm happy to give up these things for it.
Yep. And to emphasize, you said for a period of time. The goal is to flourish. The vision is to thrive. We are in no way in this moment advocating the age-old story of the starving artist, right? Like, Screw that.
Right. That don't work for no one. No, that's awful. There's no reason to be a starving artist. You may have to start that way. And it's funny, I reflect on my life. I've been a starving artist. I literally remember when I moved to New York, I had to choose between breakfast, lunch, or dinner for that day. I remember them days, and I make a conscious decision. I'm not going to go back there. I'm going to make sure I put things into place when I do finally go full time so that I have a support system underneath me. I can depend on certain things so that I can at least have a platform so I don't fall through the bottom and crash into the ocean and drown. I want to make sure, even if I am eating beans and rice, that I can afford a vegetable at some point during the week. It's not supposed to be, like you said, the starving artist is not supposed to happen. Maybe in your 20s, we were young, we can do that, but child, in these 30s, it's just not going to happen. It's just not the way it's going. I'll just get another 9 to 5. I just won't do it.
You made the point too. I think for a lot of people who are thinking, do I, don't I? It's not a finite decision either. You can go full time and you can be looking at the numbers 6 months into it, a year into it, 3 months into it, 5 months into it. I mean, look, COVID happened. I dusted off my website design skills. And you better believe that I had a couple random freelance clients completely separate from my photography work last summer that paid the bills for a couple of months. If you own a car, you can drive for Uber. I mean, I'm talking to you from my childhood bedroom at my parents' because we currently don't have a house because we're trying to make this change. Speaking truth to talking about how difficult it is to buy a house in the U.S. Woof.
Oh,
right? But we want it bad enough. We want to make this change bad enough. We wanted to leave the little condo. We want to have a place where we can have a home studio and Francesco can do his full-time production work. Like, we wanted all that stuff badly enough that we're bunking up with my parents right now. But it won't be forever. I think it's super important for people to hear, especially because I think charging what you're worth is such a big problem in the ceramics and the making industry. Like, there's one phase where it's fine to be okay and be willing and able to make sacrifices to make this dream work. But there has to come a time where you have to charge what you're worth. You have to understand your numbers and truly live a livable life and a thriving life, not just a getting by on beans and rice life either.
Absolutely. I think this goes back to the question of what does abundance look like for me? You have to know what real, true, actual abundance looks like for you. Because if you think you're going to start this business, you're going to suffer for a few months and then you'll be back to shopping at Whole Foods Weekly, that actually may not be true. You may start beans and rice, but you may only work up to Food Lion, and you have to know that is still meaningful to you, that it is still abundant for you to be able to have just groceries in the fridge, period, no matter where you got them from. That's something that you're going to work up to. You may have to let go of your Whole Foods, daily. It may be a monthly treat sort of thing, but you have to know that you're going to work up and get to where you feel complete and whole again. That's really important, because otherwise it feels like a slog. It feels like, what am I doing this for? Like, what was the purpose of this? This sucks. I could be working somebody else's 9 to 5 and making money and having good healthcare. What was the point? You have to know that there's going to be more to it. You're going to be fine.
It always comes back to healthcare, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? It fucking sucks, man. It always does, especially as I get older and I start to feel my joints giving out. Like the other day, I threw a double-walled wine cooler. And the next day, child, my hands were like, I don't know what you did, but you're not doing it again. My hands were like, this isn't going to happen, sweetie. You need to understand now. You don't have 20-year-old hands, okay? You have 33-year-old hands, so stop. My hands were killing me all day the next day. And my very first thought was, I'm going to use this good health insurance and go see an osteopath or something to get this worked out. Because I know when we go full time, then we're going to be at urgent care. We're not going to be at the medical center. So let's go get this looked at right now. I was lifting molds and my wrist started killing me. Out of nowhere. And I was doing nothing in particular. And I was like, fuck, what is happening to me? What are these joints doing exactly? Is there something I can take? Because this is nuts. I don't like this.
We are 33 and 34-year-olds trapped in the bodies of 70-year-olds.
Say it. All
right. What has, through this whole experience, from a business perspective, what has surprised you? What is different than you thought it would be, or you wish you would have known? That's a catch-22 question. Something that is just different than you thought.
That's a real good question. I really gotta think. I would say what's been different? What has not been as I expected? Okay. I thought it was going to be monthly or every other month. I would have a collection, cohesive. In my mind, it was going to be a cohesive. I come from fashion, so it was going to be this collection of items, and it was going to be this idea expressed in clay every single month. Just a singular thought with laser focus and beautiful, perfectly executed each and every month. Month 2, I was like, "Fuck, I got to do this every month. This blows." So I really thought I was going to have this beautiful, tailored idea every single month, and it did not work out that way in any way, shape, or form. After the very first month, I did that. I planned out very specific forms. I had color story. I knew what I was doing. The second month, I was like, "Child, it's a bowl. I don't know. It's a couple of bowls and there's a planner. I don't know. Buy it, please, buy it." And then I'm not kidding. It really went like that. I was like, "Child, photograph it as best you can. I don't know what I'm doing at this point." And then the third drop is after that. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to get myself back on track." I really thought I would. I was like, I'm going to get myself back on track. We're going to have a cohesive idea. Third collection, I don't even remember what it was, to be perfectly honest. At this point, it was nice. I remember it was great. It sold, but I was like, "What are we doing? Like with this brand? Like, where are we going exactly?" Because it's a mess, Rod, and I don't really like where we're going. So maybe we take some time here. And I didn't expect to have that conversation with myself because I am such a focused, creative person. I thought it was just I don't know. I thought I pictured myself like Valentino. Like I was just creating iconic piece after iconic piece. And when I started making these random bowls that I don't know, it was a bowl. After that, I was like, "Well, fuck. This blows, man. Like, where are we going with this?" And so I stopped and was like, "Oh, let's hit pause and let's take the time to figure some things out." And that's when I started to get into slip casting. And that's when I also took the time to get a month ahead. I've lost the lead now, but something I wanted to do was get a month ahead of stuff so that it wasn't a scramble to come up with an idea. And I guess I had to learn, the thing that took me by surprise was that I just had to learn when to stop and pull the plug. I had to learn to say, "This isn't what I set out to do. This isn't my intention. Let's take some time." Thankfully, because this is not my sole business, so I had that privilege of saying, I don't have to work on any particular collection these 3 months. I can figure out something new. And that's what I did. And so that's how the New Year collection was actually born before the holiday collection. I was a full month ahead of that on that. I finally got back to my original plan. It was a singular idea. Slip cast. I had to be okay with telling myself, I worry every collection, "Oh my God, nobody's gonna buy this." And I say to myself too, every time, I always look at the stuff on the floor, like the night before it goes on sale, I look at it and I'm like, "Nobody's buying any of this. This is garbage. Yeah, this is just throw it away at this point." Because honestly, nobody even wants this crap. Look at that crack at the bottom. What are you doing? Ridiculous. Every single time I say this to myself. And I had, with that New Year collection, I had to say, "No, it's good. This is good work. People are going to buy it. You have done what you sought out to do, which is express an idea in clay. You have done it." I did not know that I would have to have that kind of talk with myself because I thought I had the confidence and the self-assuredness to power through. Turned out I did not. I was disabused of that immediately. And when I started on the holiday collection, I think it was still a little hodgepodge. It wasn't the singular idea per se, but I took a different tack with it. I had to stop myself and say, "All right, the forms are all over the place. You've got a little bit of everything here, but how can you unite them visually? How can you make this fantastic?" I went back to the drawing board on how I marketed it. I had in my head I was going to be a certain type of set. It was going to be a certain type of lighting. It was going to be a certain type of dressing on the sets. And I got burnt out on it really quickly. And so for the holiday collection, I decided, let's do something wildly different. Them photos were dark on purpose. I went after this golden light look.
That's when I started following you.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, here's a potter that knows how to use a camera. What up? Hello.
Thank you, Parsons. Parsons School of Design. I went for this thin, light vision, and I wanted to do something different. I wanted photos that were dark and moody. Maybe you couldn't see the piece 100% in these photos. I really had to stop and try something new, because what I was doing was not, it wasn't that it wasn't working, but it wasn't satisfying me. And it wasn't what I knew I wanted the vision of this brand to be. So I did not, to answer your question again, I did not expect to have to tell myself, girl, stop, this is a mess. You need to do something different, honey. That was a tough conversation to have, because I consider myself to be very well put together and very in control all the time. And this was a scenario where I had lost control. It may not have appeared that way to other people, but I felt it. And so I did not have to expect to have to rein myself in and talk to myself in that way. All that pausing and stopping gave me the confidence to say, okay, let's try something else new. Let's try not announcing this collection. And let's try teasing it a few weeks before. And let's try a single clay and a single treatment, nothing crazy on this. And let's try a hyper-produced video to sell this thing. Let's try all these new ideas. Because I knew I could now, I had the skill set of stopping to take the time to do something different. And it worked. It worked perfectly. And it felt good to me. Even though it didn't sell out like the other stuff did immediately, it felt good to me to be walking in this path that I knew is exactly how I wanted to work and had been trying to for a full year and been failing at. It just felt very satisfying to me in that way. But I did not expect to have to really back to the drawing board like that at all.
And I think something that touches on is the need to constantly be looking at how you're working and what's not and changing. I think so many of us, myself included, expected, because I'm so systems oriented, I'm going to be able to analyze everything, build a system. That system is then going to work, and it just lives that way forever. When in actuality, you're constantly like fudging with the knobs and twisting things to find just the right balance and just the right settings, trying different ways to make it work and make it work better. And it's like a friend of mine last year reminded me of using the word practice, right? This is a practice, just like yoga is a practice for some people, where you're constantly working on improving. There's never really an end. So.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And I went down that road just very recently. I had, right after the holiday collection, I said I wanted to stop again and find my thing. I wanted a signature. I look at artists like Sula at Golden Ratio Clayworks, who has a look. I look at Sarah Hussein at Not Work Related. Her work has a look. You can see it a mile away. You can spot her mug in a magazine and go, yeah, that's a Not Work Related mug. I didn't have a look. I wanted to find what is my actual signature. And so I took the time. I stopped production on what I was doing, in fact. I threw it out and stopped and said, let me try something I've had in my mind for a long time. And I started making these conjoined forms. It's basically two bowls, two curved forms that are connected at their parabolas. And I started working with this form. And I really liked where it was going. And I liked the visual language it was developing. And then I hit a point somewhere around when I did the Yaoi collection. And I was like, I don't like this, actually. I'm on the path. I don't like what I'm doing. I don't think this is what I'm trying to express with this form. And so I scrapped everything that I'd done up to that point. I can actually look at maybe 30 pieces right now. I'm not going to sell one of them because they're not right. They're not what I wanted to express. And so I had to really take a step back and say, is this working? Can we tweak some more knobs? Where are we actually trying to go with it? And I once I did that, it was like a switch. The forms became clear to me. Once I was able to get past the stuff that I didn't want and had the sort of muscle memory to create these sort of things, now I've started making stuff that I'm like, yeah, this is it. This is a signature form. This is the kind of thing that you'll see in Dwell magazine and be like, yeah, that's a deep black design mug. If I ever seen one, honey, that is it right there, honey. The color, the form, the texture, it all works. It's him. But man, I had to stop several times to get to that. I had to throw out a lot of stuff. And even my friend, she came over and she looked at it. She was like, oh, these came out great. They're gorgeous. Oh my God, I love the color. I'm like, yeah, I sell them. They're garbage. I don't want to even look at them. honestly. You want to take one home, give it to somebody, because this is wrong. And that is, I think, very difficult for a lot of people to look at things that they've made and know that they're not what you wanted. They're good. They're great stuff. I could sell it, have sold it, but it's not what I want. And that's real tough to come to grips with sometimes, especially as artists, as older artists too. We think we got our shit figured out. Turns out, you don't actually. You got a lot more work to do, a lot more growing.
And the pressure, as you mentioned, as far as if this is already the only thing, if this is the only thing bringing in money, if this is the only thing paying the bills, the pressure to perform and to be able to sell. We've united so many conversations that I've had over the very short life of this podcast so far around giving yourself the space to find your style and take that pressure off of it. Keep that job, keep throwing in the nights and the weekends and testing out things while you have somebody else's healthcare so that you can find what is uniquely yours.
Yes, it's so important. And I wish I had done this much sooner. I wish I had not been so low on this concept of these collections of things. I wish I had gone when I started. If I could go back in time, I would tell my younger self, don't bother. Don't bother with these other things. Don't even look at it. Make this instead. Do this one thing and run with it because it feels correct to me. It feels clear. The other stuff may have felt clear in the moment, and looking back on it, it's cute. It's sold. Somebody bought it all. But it's not it. Like, I know this, what I'm doing now, to be it.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, real tough to say. Real tough for me as a Scorpio.
Full circle. Right there.
Yeah.
Sherrod, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. I hope everybody else loves it as much as I could keep talking to you for hours, genuinely.
I had a good time. I know.
Man. I'm like, all right, it's 3
o'clock. This is what I love, talking about feelings and play. I love it.
I'm like, we can just roll this in. Let me grab a cocktail. Hold on, let's keep going. Because that's where we would be. Oh man. Where, for people who haven't found you online yet, where should they come check out this the thing that you are going to be putting out into the world soon? Where they come see you and catch up with you?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at deepblack.design, or you can go to my website at www.deepblack.design. That is a real website. And please join the email list. I only send out one a month, if that. To be perfectly honest, it's been a few months, but email list, you get notified of stuff sooner than Instagram, but Instagram is where you can see all the good stuff that's coming and get a little taste of what's to come.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I will link that all up in the show notes for everybody as always as well. So we're going to have to do this again and talk about like a whole conversation on failure. There's so many topics we could just pick singular.
Oh my God. Oh, let's talk about college. Let's talk about failure. Let's talk about art school. Let's talk about style. We didn't get to talk about style, and style is me, honey. Let's talk about all of that. Let's do it again.
I know. I feel like that was like in my notes of things because I remember reading your bio, even just on Instagram, as short as that was. You were talking about like luxury home goods and stuff, and that being a specific niche. And we'll be back. We might have cocktails the next time.
Yes. That sounds right to me.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
And that is the end of episode 124. This is our third week of new episodes, and if you've been following along on the podcast for a little while now, you know that means next week is our off week. We launch new episodes 3 out of every 4 weeks. But what does launch on that 4th week is a monthly email with photography tips. If you miss joining out on the Maker's Photography Styling System and are craving learning how to take better photos faster, even with something as simple as your cell phone, then you want to be sure to snag my at-home photography cheat sheet so that you're on the list for all of the future monthly tips as well. The cheat sheet will give you a foundation and starting point to kick off all the rest of the tips from there. As always, the link is in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, it would be amazing if you snapped a quick screenshot and shared it on Instagram stories. Tag me at The Maker's Playbook and Sherrod at deepblack.design so we can send our big, fiery Scorpio thanks. Until next time, go get back to making your dreams a reality. because together, we've got this.